Hello and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or searched desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are going to talk about light in the evening and do a little check-in or audit of your light sources and how they are having an impact on your family's sleep. So first, why do we care, right? Why do we care about light? We're going to go into this a little bit more detail in just a moment, but we care about light because our light in the evening directly impacts our circadian rhythm, signaling, and our sleep. So it's really important. And why am I doing this episode now? Well, I actually really like the fall and early October as a time to check in on our evening light choices. And this is just a me thing. I don't know that other people or other sleep coaches think of it this way, but I think of it as the fact that we come into October and we still have a decent amount of evening light, right? Sunset's around 7-ish here. I haven't looked at the exact time, but it's around 7-ish, maybe teeny before, maybe teeny after. And then by the end of the month, it's around 6 o'clock. And then you kind of turn the corner immediately, and then we have standard time. And we lose a whole nother hour of daylight in the evening with the time falling back. So in, about a month-ish, just over a month, we lose 2 hours of evening daylight, of evening sunlight. And so suddenly we are using so many more artificial lights, right? It's kind of like the opposite. Our fall into winter challenge is managing artificial lights, and our late spring and summer challenge is managing sunlight impacts on our little sleep. So I like to think October is a good time to check in. If you've never checked in on your lighting, then absolutely really important. If you've done it before, sometimes just a good time to just check and see if any of your patterns have changed, anything has changed. So that's why now in early October. Why do we care about our light in the evening? Now, I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I'll link to a couple episodes in the show notes, but light is one of the biggest regulators and signalers of our circadian rhythm, which is our body's internal 24-hour clock. So we need a strong and stable circadian rhythm to be a healthy human and to have good quality sleep, right? And those, of course, go hand in hand, but it isn't just about sleep. Circadian rhythm regulates so many different functions of the body. And that basic light signaling is premised on the fact that we have sun, right? Daylight in the day, sun sets, it's dimmer in the evening, and then dark overnight, and then back to daylight. And throughout most of human history, we did not have artificial lights, right? So once the sun went down, we didn't have bright light. We had firelight. We had very soft, warm lighting for whatever activities we were doing after sunset. And so that is what our body is used to, right? We can have modern society and love modern technology, but our bodies have not evolved for that kind of input. And I meant to and totally forgot to look up the statistics, but there was a lecture that I saw a couple years ago on lighting that traced the evolution of the light bulb from the kind of old school light bulbs all the way up to the LED light bulbs and their impact on suppressing melatonin. And essentially, our newer, lovely, energy efficient light bulbs suppress melatonin significantly more than older light bulbs. So that's not good, right? That means modern light has always been a problem. In the last couple decades, it's become more of a problem. So what does that mean for the fact that we have to see, right? We have to do things after dark. So I like to think of this in a few different ways, right? Like the first is we need a minimum of an hour of dim, warm lighting ahead of sleep. Minimum. If you want to be like super fancy, then we would only use dim, warm lighting sources after it's dark, right? That's not the recommendation I give to most of my clients. I stick with at least an hour because I feel like for many people that is more doable, and I'd rather you do that hour than get so overwhelmed that you can't do everything. But sort of most ideal would be that we just don't use any bright lights after it's dark. And so what you need to do is really think about, where do you go in your house after it's dark, right? Or in that last hour ahead of bedtime, right? Is it the kitchen? Is it the living room? This isn't just about the bedroom, right? Is it the bathroom? Bathrooms and kitchens both tend to have really, really bright lights. And so how can we modify these lights to make them dimmer and warmer so that we're letting our body understand it's not noon, right? It's not the bright of day in here. It's actually softer, warmer lighting. And so we want to think kind of firelight end of the spectrum, right? So the yellowy kind of bulbs, you can actually buy orangey amber toned light bulbs that have the like blue and green wavelengths edited out. And for like super nighttime, like night lights, you can buy red colored night lights. So think firelight end of the spectrum. And then if you can, also lower in your visual field is better for evening light sources. So think like table lamps rather than big overhead lights. And why is this, right? Well, when is it in nature? When do we have bright lights overhead? Right? The middle of the day. And so that is signaling to our bodies. It's confusing, right? Because, I mean, I guess the moon is overhead, but that's such a different type of light source. So table lamps, if you can do it, is another way that you can help. Bathrooms, I think, can be really tricky. You know, there's the light bulbs that you can adjust the dimness, you can adjust the color. I've seen clients bring in different light sources. So there are different ways to troubleshoot bathrooms, but I find that they are one of the most trickiest places for folks to troubleshoot. So ideally, right, we are thinking about everywhere we go, we are giving the family ourselves options for dim, warm lights, and just realizing that we don't need super, super bright lights everywhere we go in the evening. Now, as an adult, for your own sleep quality, it's also good to be mindful of screens and screen light exposure, because that's also a lot of really bright light and a lot of blue light, which is the biggest suppressor of melatonin. So as an adult, you could skew your screens into nighttime mode, like your phone, and that just skews everything to the kind of warm end of the spectrum. Some TVs do that as well. Learned that from a client this summer. Computers, you can do that as well. And if your littles are asleep and you want to watch some TV, you also can pop on some orange amber tone blue light blocking glasses, right? We can kind of think of blocking the light in two ways. We can block it with blue light blocking glasses. We can adapt the environment, right? But we can't put blue light blocking glasses on a baby or a young child. So we always need to adapt the environment for them. But there is that option for you, doing something maybe after your littles are asleep and you want to relax with the show. That's also a valid option. So just to sort of sum things up, we want at least an hour of warm, dim lights everywhere you're moving through your home. It would be completely wonderful if you did that from dark on, but if that doesn't feel practical, just really focus on that last hour. Dim warm, meaning like soft, firelight end of the spectrum. Think table lamps versus overhead lights when you can. Really don't forget about places like bathrooms and kitchens that have really bright lights. And just be mindful of your screen use as an adult and its impact and how you can mitigate that. So I hope this gives you some things to think about and you wander around your house a little bit and see what things might need to be changed and what things are already in a good shape. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.